Welcome back to Walk with TFB. Tim Bryson here, and as y'all know, I'm a Black millennial who is eager to have unfiltered conversation with authentic people centered on education, sport, and culture. Today, we are walking with the boy mama, Jesus lover, and future Raising Cane's franchise owner. A Texas native, she stayed in state and earned her bachelor's degree while competing as a college athlete at Rice University. She went on to earn her master's degree from Stephen F. Austin State University before finishing her formal educational career with a PhD from Northcentral University. Throughout her career, she has redefined what it means to be a jack of all trades and master of none. From Westbrook Senior High School to Purdue University, everywhere she's been, she's made a significant impact in both human lives and the environment in which she lived. She continues to change the game in international spaces, currently serving as a manager for basketball advancement with the Toronto Raptors. If you know her, you love her, of course, and already know what to expect. If you don't know her, you might want to hit pause, get your pen and paper out, and get ready for these LCJ gems. So without further ado, y'all help me welcome Dr. Lacee Carmon-Johnson. Dr. Lacee.
Oh, hey.
What's poppin', man? I finally got to get you on.
Another day in the hood over here, in the new hood, in the 6.
Yeah,
glad to finally be here, though.
Yeah, you been there like 2 weeks now?
2 weeks, yep.
Biggest adjustment so far?
The speed limit. So, and then of course we're in the metric system, so it's in kilometers, and I'm like, oh, we can go 100, but 100 is not 100, it's like 60, and I'm like, why are we not driving faster? So that's quite a change. And then like, I need to switch it over on my car so that I actually can see it in kilometers versus, so that's been a little different. And the traffic, like, you know, I've been coming from the little small college towns.
True.
So that's a setup, it is.
Have you had the tomato chips, ketchup chips? What they called?
I don't know, but do you know they put their milk in bags here?
I did know that.
Someone told me that, and I thought it was a joke. I'm like, oh, they're just hazing me. Like, it's not for real. They really don't put them in bags. And I got to the store and they had it in bags. And I'm like, I can't buy it because what am I supposed to put it in? I don't have anything at the house yet. So I don't have a jug to transfer my milk into the bags. But it's super expensive if you buy it just like in a carton. So I'm gonna have to get me a milk jug.
That's totally fine. Well, like I said, keep taking notes. I plan on living internationally at some point in my life because I gotta go. But I'm happy that we get to have you to kick off season 4, right? And so season 1, we talked about amplifying Black voices. Season 2 was all about more than a millennial. Season 3 was about buying Black. And from the moment I started this podcast, now a year and 3 months ago, I was like, Lacee got to be on. Like, she got to be on. And people have reached out like, when can I get on? I'm like, the time is coming. It has to be the right time. And I'm glad I waited because the right time is now. But before we jump into your story, doing some different things this season and starting off episodes this season, asking, what brings you joy?
Ooh, let me tell you, a good nap, because I got kids. Yeah, so a good nap brings me joy. Reading or listening to good audibles. I love to hear people's stories. And I've never really been a podcast person, but your podcast, the Starter 5 podcast, My League Teal, even like hers are kind of throwback podcasts. Like those are some of the ones that I just kind of listen because I like to hear people's stories coming from so many different backgrounds and whatnot. And then all things being by the water. And so you talked about living internationally. I jokingly said probably 2 or 3 years ago that if a certain person became president again, I would probably find my way somewhere out of the country, but I was envisioning the Bahamas, maybe going to work down at the university down there. I spent a little bit of time there. I had some friends who already were down there. I was really excited about maybe that being a transition. And so, I made it out of the country. I did make it by water. It is not warm, but it's okay. So I got 2 out of the 3, and that brings me a lot of joy. I mean, my house is literally a block from the lake, so it's awesome.
That's dope. Well, I'll be coming to visit soon. Might have to record a podcast at the crib. I'll bring.
Hey, we can do a live. What is it? Vlog?
Don't stop playing. You give me ideas. But you mentioned storytelling, right? And I won't talk about my journey with quantitative research right now because I learned what our studio was yesterday and had to close my laptop. But this is a podcast rooted in storytelling. And so transition us to segment one, Dr. Lacee, what is your story?
Ooh, man, you talk about a jack of all trades. I think that's probably the most accurate statement of who I am. So many people have always tried to put me in boxes or try to tell me I had to choose to do X, Y, and Z. And I didn't. I've always done things my way in my time. Pretty much the epitome of like, I'm marched to the beat of my own drum. So I chose to go to Rice University for college. I had scholarships at Baylor, at Pepperdine, University of Texas, LSU, all these other places. And I decided that I was going to go to Rice. I was just going to be a student. I was not going to do sports. My roommate actually was a track athlete and the other two were soccer athletes. And within 2 days of being there, they're like, oh, you should go try to walk onto the team. I'm like, okay. And showed up and never left. Passed out the first day of practice, but ended up being a national qualifier. So, like working hard, being the underdog, I definitely think it's a huge part of who I am. Something that I'm extremely proud of because I always believe like not a single person's ever going to outwork me. Like you're just not. And that's kind of followed me through my career. And so I went into coaching, didn't have the intentions of doing coaching, but I wanted to get my master's degree because I wasn't ready to kind of go into the real world. And I got to coach. I got to work in the administrator or in the AD's office at a Division III school. And I got to be a teaching fellow all in the same year. And so I look back at that now. And as I've been reflecting some years later, I've realized how that has set me up through my career. Because at some point or another, I've done all three. At the same time, I've done 2 out of the 3, or, I've been able to just be in so many different places and spaces that, like, you look at my resume, you look at my LinkedIn, and people are like, well, is she like 50 years old, all this stuff that she's done? But no, like, I've just been in different industries and I've been able to transfer. And that's something we always talk about with our student athletes, like, how are your skills transferable? Well, they are. It's all about selling that story of how you can bring things. Just because I might not have been the most qualified on paper for certain positions, but I was able to sell it based off of the transferable skills. And I don't always tell people, like, when you hire me, you're not hiring a position, you're hiring a person who's going to come in and like kill it. And so if that's not what you're looking for, if you're looking for somebody that's going to check those boxes of X, Y, and Z, then I'm not the person, and I'm okay with saying that. And I'll exit stage left, and it was great to meet you, and maybe we'll be able to connect in the future. So I've now been in college. I volunteered at the high school level for a little bit. I taught at the junior college level. I've taught undergrad and grad classes. I still teach classes now. We actually started our classes yesterday for Western Kentucky. Now working with the Raptors and doing athlete development with them. And I own my own business. So kind of get to do a little bit of everything and do it on my time.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And you one of the greats, not even in college sport, but I think higher education, just in employment in general, because of what you just said. But I want to come back to this piece about being an underdog, because my favorite rapper, shout out to Certified Lover Boy, is Drake. Yet he continues to embody this like underdog mentality. Of course, it started from the bottom. He was on freaking Degrassi, whatever. But like for you, where does that come from? Like, where does like that being an underdog mentality come from? And how does it continue to stay with you throughout your career that you've continued to ascend, the organizational chart?
I think it was just, I was never the absolute best. I never walked into a situation like even as a kid. I mean, I remember playing little dribblers basketball when I was 9-10 years old. My dad always tells the story about how when I got drafted, I was not the best person on the team. I was probably one of the most athletic, but definitely not the best and the most talented in the basketball sense. But I just worked my way up to be the best and be the one that the next year everybody went. I was like trying to like vying for like first round draft pick type status. But from an academic standpoint, my brother is way smarter than me. He's a Bill Gates scholar. Got a scholarship to go to NYU, ended up transferring to Fordham. He danced with Alvin Ailey, now dances professionally with the Lion King. We always say it was too much star power in the house when we were little, which is why we couldn't stand each other. But now like we're great. I love him. He's absolutely awesome. And I'm so incredibly proud of him. But I just, like, I always had to work harder than everybody else, but I wanted to get good grades for myself. Like, I wasn't doing it to impress my parents or to help someone else. Like, I just naturally was a self motivator. Like, I want to be the best because I want to be the best. And I'm going to show you how you can keep pushing the limits of what the best looks like.
Come on, LCJ Gems. We starting early. So check this out, right? Because again, people can go through your resume, they can go through your LinkedIn. It's like, damn, like how has she done all of these things in, relatively short amount of time? Yet the one thing that stands first on your Twitter account, and I'm sure it would stand first on your resume if you could or decided to do so, is being a boy mama. Yes. And so what does that mean to you as you continue to, again, dabble in these different things, right? But still understand and stay grounded in who you are as a boy mama and Jesus lover?
Man, being a boy mama it's my favorite title. I mean, I've been coach, I've been doctor, professor, Mrs., all of the above. And it is hands down my most favorite thing. It changed my life. I mean, I always say, like, my oldest son, like, really just, he kind of like saved my life, like in a time and a space where I was really struggling mentally, just trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted to do and how I wanted to, like, move through life. And like, he came in and he made me reevaluate what was most important in life. And, like, knowing that I had somebody else that was looking, like, toward me, but that, like, I was always motivated in myself. But now, like, I wanted to show him, like, girls can do everything that guys can do. Like, you could be a boss, like your mama is a boss. I remember when I got my PhD and I was like, mama's a doctor now. He was like, not my doctor. I was like, okay, he'll humble you quick, but he's so proud of me. Like, he walks around with his Raptors gear on, or when I was at Purdue, like, all of this Purdue stuff, like, he's so proud that, like, I'm affiliated with these amazing programs and get to do this, like, really cool stuff. And it's like, no, my mama go and she helps the guys with their homework and, like, gets them situated for, life after sports. And he thinks it's normal that we go to weddings and Dak Prescott is there and, like, those kind of things. And so that's, that boy mama piece is awesome. And the baby, just having a baby in the middle of a pandemic it put things in perspective. Like, and like, when I think about how I march to the beat of my own drum and do my own thing, like, that's the one right there. He's the wild card. Like, he's always going to do his own thing in his time, and he don't care what nobody have to say about it. And it's crazy to think that a 13-month-old carries that much weight, but he reminds me just to keep things in perspective and to be so unapologetic about who I am.
One day I'll get there as a boy dad, girl dad. One day I get there, but hearing you speak, man, I keep joking.
I'm a certified boy mom, certified.
As you should be. I think my mama is too. I mean, she has a daughter. We have a daughter, but I have a sibling. But one day I'm gonna get my mom on this podcast one day, have her talk more about that, because hearing mothers talk about, kids and children is something that continues to inspire me. But one thing you mentioned, right, with your first son, shout out to Ace, as I transition us to segment 2, it's how we changed your life. And one thing that I've been thinking about now for me personally is, like, how this PhD program is changing my life in the moment, right? I think a lot of people even myself was looking to graduation, but I'm like, damn, there's so much learning, so much critiquing, so much challenging of myself that's happening in the moment as relates to this program, being in this program. So given that this season is focused on educators, I'm curious to know, and I'm sure others as well, why did you pursue this PhD, right? Because you're working in college sport. We're starting to see more people in college sport pursue terminal degrees, but I'm sure back then it wasn't a common thing. And so why?
Oh, back then, it made me sound real old. But I guess in theory, I mean, I started my PhD a decade ago.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of a long time ago. But yeah, so when I was in undergrad, actually, when I was a little kid, I wanted to be a doctor, but I wanted to be a medical doctor. Then I got to undergrad. I took, some science classes and whatnot. I did fine in them, but I just wasn't, I'm like, this isn't what I want to do. Like, I want to be able to talk to people. And as a doctor or physician, most times you're not really getting to spend a lot of time, like, talking and really getting to know your patients. I mean, you can go and be a nurse, and I think you probably get more interaction in that regard, but I'm like, no, I want to be a doctor. Mm-hmm. So I had a professor my senior year who made a statement. It was like, you like to talk to folks, why don't you be a professor? I said, okay, well, I guess that's something that I can look into. So I did my master's, and I mentioned I got to be a teaching fellow, so I did get some time in the classroom. I was also coaching and stuff. I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. So let me go ahead and just start. I'm gonna start my PhD right after, because I'm not the one. I can't stop and take a break, because if I do, I'm just probably not going to go back. So I'm going to get wrapped up in doing something else, and I just didn't want to take that time off. So I started. It took me much longer than I would have liked to finish. But at that point, I had gotten married. I'd moved 3 times. I had a baby. I changed careers, all in the same right. And I was doing all of this while working full time. So at the end of the day, yeah, it took me longer than I would have liked. But it opened so many doors for me that I didn't necessarily think that would really come from it. When I got it, it was more so like I knew I was going to stay in sports, and I knew I didn't need it to be in sports, but I always knew that I didn't want anybody to ever tell me I wasn't educated enough or I didn't have the credentials, especially as a Black woman. I'm the bottom on the totem pole, and I didn't want anybody to tell me that I wasn't going to be good enough for whatever position that I wanted to fill, whatever that looked like. And at the time I was thinking, probably a deputy AD. I really never had aspirations of being an athletic director. I think a lot of people can see me like in that leadership role, and that's great. I appreciate them having that kind of faith in me. But I think I'm a solid number 2. I want to serve, and I want to manage people and manage the human capital that we serve within our organization. Like, that's what's most important to me, not kissing babies and raising money. I can do it. I can sell water to a well. I don't think that's an issue for me because I can communicate with anybody. But I think what's most important is home base and taking care of home. So that's really why I got it. Once I finished, I'd already gotten offered a full-time teaching position. And so I had the opportunity to stay in athletics and work as an advisor, and then also teach full time. But once I moved into that full time role, it's like, oh man, now I have more time because I'm not spending all this time writing and doing homework and writing papers and all this other stuff. So let me try to get this student athlete development stuff together, and let me use these faculty funds that I have to do some research. And so I had a colleague who had applied for the NCAA research and practice grant. And this was the 3rd time. And so I hopped on it with her. We used my connections with the athletic department, her research background, and then another friend from a legal aspect of it. And we had all been doing a lot of online teaching, which was something that was very brand new at the time. And so we got the grant, and that really opened the door to my eyes from a student athlete development lens as well. And so we got this award. I was able to kind of get my face kind of in the M4A scene as well. I remember walking back, getting the award, and I'm walking through, and Felicia Martin, who was the president at the time, she's sitting down, and she was beaming because it was 3 Black women who had gotten a research award at M4A. Like, what? That doesn't happen ever. Like, you don't even have Black people who apply for stuff like that. And so I remember seeing that, and like now I've actually had a couple of conversations with Felicia. She never knows like how much that meant to me at the time, but just to see like how proud she was of us, I'm like, man, gosh, this is like great. But when I got my PhD, I didn't even want to be called Dr. Lacee. I was just Lacee. And I always said I wanted to work hard to be called when I want to be called, and I'm Lacee. Just, it's a humanizing factor, but don't get it twisted. I will drop that doctor on you in a minute if I have to check you, because a lot of times people forget, like when I walk in the room, I'm probably one of the most educated. I might not look like it. I got twists in my head, and I got a shirt that says Black, educated, and petty on right now. It's who I am. But I bring something different to the table because I do have the educational background, but I do have a very humble background beginning as well, that I think helps me relate to a little bit of everybody, going back to that jack of all trades.
Well, you continue to again, challenge and redefine what that even means. But sticking with this doc experience, right? And again, I've seen it, a little bit. Obviously, I've been in a year. But how is what you learn, but even that title helps you influence spaces, shape spaces, manage human capital within the environments that you've been in your career, particularly in sport?
So I didn't realize this for a long time, but as much research as you have to do in a doctoral program, Look, let me tell you, I was trying to run away from it as quick as possible. I never even, I mean, my dissertation is published because I had to print the book that, for ProQuest. And so I have both that and my master's thesis in there, but I didn't want to like do a bunch of articles and stuff. Like I'm more of a practical application type person, but I see things from a research lens. So I'm, wanting to know, okay, how can we affect X, Y, and Z? What if we put this type of influence here? Like, how is it going to change this, that, and the other? Or is it not going to have any change at all? And so I just see things, especially in the athletic space. I'm not doing stuff just because I think it's fun. I'm doing it. It's very intentional. It's very intentional and it's very observational. So from the conversations that I have, like when we started the Boiler Swag program, it was because I'm having conversations with my athletes and they're like, man, I really wish we had this, or I really need this, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, well, why don't we put together this? These will be the 4 pillars. We can do X, Y, and Z. I like remember presenting this framework to like the coach of the chief of staff, and they're looking like they don't really care what the research theory that I'm like wanting to use and stuff. It's okay. But like, that's how my brain thinks. And I know I'm bringing something different to the table, because at the end of the day, if I wanted to write up all this stuff, I can. And yeah, I do still, I haven't published in a while, but like for years, like I was always trying to like stay relevant with regard to making sure I was like writing stuff, because if my kids decide that they want to go and be on the AAU circuit and I just don't have time to be traveling with a team or an athletic department or putting all of that time in there, I can always go back into a higher education space that I think is much less demanding on time, and where I can control more of my own schedule to dedicate more time to my kids. So it gave me the opportunity to just redefine the space of what I want to do.
Well, we can definitely find opportunity to write. I get the writing itch every now and then, but I'm like, yo, if we could just take out like the lit review, you know what I'm saying, and just jump straight, we good.
I'll never forget when he said, I was doing my dissertation, it was like 40 to 80 pages for the lit is about Carmon. I was like, what? I'm not trying to do this. And I changed my topic. So like I had to redo a bunch of stuff. And I mean, my chair changed 3 times. I went through it in my process. I almost got like some horror stories of it. But I remember when I defended and they told me it was so good that I really didn't have to make any edits, I was like, praise Jesus. Like, y'all gonna get it with these typos in here and everything, because I don't care. I'm done.
That's gonna be me. Shit. I hope that's me. But you just mentioned your dissertation, right? And you also talked about human capital. And if I'm reading this correct, I'm sure it's updated, but it says that your doc dissertation investigated the female assistant coaching experience with regard to work, family enrichment, and intention to leave. Yep. Okay, so just given what we've seen over the last now 3 to 6 months, particularly within college sport, there seems to be what I call an exodus of college sport practitioners leaving the industry, but especially college athlete development, student athlete development practitioners also leaving and going in other spaces in either higher education and or out of it. From your lens, given that you were both personal and, educational, and that you also done this over the last, 6 months, what's happening? What's going on right now? I was going to set it up for you in that way, because again, I have my own ideas and perspective. I'm sure a lot of people do, and I hope they do and continue to think about it. But like, what is going on? Because you wrote about this in your diss, but also, I mean, you're living it right now.
So at the end of the day, it all comes down to value. Okay. If we don't feel valued, and people give us shit as millennials all the time, right? That like we hop from place to place. We don't want to put in our time and do our, what do they call it? The pay your dues and whatever else. Look, first of all, I pay my dues. I remember when I was making $30,000, working 1 million hours a week and doing X, Y, and Z. And like, I didn't pay all of my dues. So I'm really not trying to hear that. But I also felt very valued while I was paying those dues. So I didn't, it wasn't even a big deal that I made $30,000. It was like, I love what I do. I love the impact that I'm getting to make, and I love the organization that I'm getting to work for. And then I've made more money, and you don't always feel that same impact. And so I think that is this last year has just showed us how important that really is to us. We had the ability to work from home. And I was working more hours from home I mean, I was working literally sun up to sundown, but when it's May in West Lafayette, Indiana, sundown is 9 o'clock at night. And so I was working all day long and didn't even, realize it because it really just wasn't a major stopping point. But it was just like, it's the value piece. I've had so many conversations with some young professionals, and it's like, well, I don't feel like they get me. I don't feel like they're hearing me. I'm not happy here. I want to have some type of sense of balance. I mean, we have schools going back, and we're still in the middle of COVID, and there's minimal restrictions. You don't have to wear masks. I'm watching football this weekend, and it is just like, giving me like major anxiety because there's so many people all in one small space. And I'm like, that's a lot going on. And statistics show all these people are not vaccinated. And so it's like, do these organizations, how much do they value you, and how much do they value the money that you can provide for them? And so I think that's a big piece of it. And I reflect back on my dissertation, and even as an early coach, and I remember it wasn't College Women Leaders then, it was whatever it was called twice before, because I graduated from the NCAA Women's Coaches Academy then. But I remember they were always saying, like, if you leave a space, make sure that space is replaced with someone who looks like you. Mm-hmm. And so that is something that I've always tried to ensure, like, as I've moved from place to place, and like trying to help and assist in whatever ways I could, like finding someone, whether it was a person of color or a woman or whatever, to fill those roles. But that work-family balance, or I think of it as integration, because balance really doesn't exist, but it's all in the mindset of how you look at it. So that's what I found in my research. It's like, when you're looking at it from a conflict standpoint, like, you're more likely to want to leave. But when you're looking at it from an enrichment standpoint, and like, these pieces really can fit together and they can work and they can bring value together, then you're more likely to want to stay. And so that was, I look at how I've transitioned through my career, and that's been, I'm living proof of what I studied. Because why is it that women, we get into like kind of these middle roles, and it's like you can't ascend to the next level, because why? And I'm trying to get to that next level and continue to push that. And I have kids, and I'm a career mom, and I'm a working mom, and I am very, very proud of that. And I'm going to continue to show people that you can do it, and you can be great at it, and you can continue to integrate all of those pieces in your life, because those are things that bring me joy. My kids bring me joy, but my work very much so brings me joy.
And so it's pretty much aligned with, I think, what Christia has also been saying. Christia Worthy, shout out to Christia, mm-hmm. has also been saying publicly, especially on Twitter and LinkedIn, et cetera. But I think we're all those who are paying attention are all drawn to this middle level management piece, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot, and I've said this 1,000 times, like, where does a pipeline start? What the fuck is the pipeline? We see obviously a lot of minorities, a lot of women in this entry level, whatever. But for those who have the privilege and power in both the middle level and senior level to create environments that I think speak back to this enrichment point that you just talked about, what can they be doing? And I ask that as not as giving them free game, but mm-hmm. not doing the work for them. Like, what can they begin to think about more critically to then be able to establish a different type of environment to not just retain, systemically marginalized populations, but also promote, advocate, and pay them as well?
Well, the exposure piece is huge. I mean, I've gotten where I've gotten because white men have helped me and put me in places where I could be seen.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
And I almost, gosh, it makes me sad to even have to think that I always had to rely on white men to get me to those points. Like, I didn't have Black women who were putting me in those places. I didn't have women in general. It's almost like I'm a threat to women. So, it is what it is. I kind of always keep folks at an arm's length with regard to that sometimes. And that's just, it's who I am. If I'm going to be a threat to you, then that's a you problem, not a me problem, because it ain't going to stop, how it is that I'm going about things. But definitely, like, the exposure piece is something that is huge. And I think it's something that is almost innate in the white community. I mean, you see John, Paul, Jim, and Greg, who as interns are getting to shadow, higher ups, but then you see Black women who they're still in the same positions 4 years later, and they work their butt off and they have things to show for it, but nobody knows who they are because somebody else always got the credit for what they were doing. And I can't tell you how many times other people got credit for the things that I was doing. And look, that's something right there. It definitely pisses you off, but I always know that like what's for me is for me. And it's, even if that means they got to circle back to come back around to come get me, it ain't never gonna miss me. So I'm confident in that. I'm confident in like what I particularly bring to the table, but I know that there's a lot of folks who continually get missed because somebody else won't open the door for them. Somebody else won't lift them up. Somebody else won't give them the credit that they need to do, or they need to continue to shine. And we got to be flexible with folks, man. People got lives. This is not the only thing we're doing. Like you're in places of power now. And so in theory, you're not having to do as much day-to-day grind. But like you were once there. So you don't remember all the stuff that you had to do. And you probably was doing a whole lot more because it was less of y'all than it is now. So like give people grace. Like, why is it so hard to just give people grace? And why do we just think that we can just jump right back into reality of what was normal 2 years ago, as if like all kind of shit ain't changed in the last 18 months? No crickets? Oh, okay. All right.
Listen, you ain't got to tell me that I've been saying this shit for a grip now. Like millennials for sure, and definitely Gen Z are poised to, I think, transform what higher education, honestly, just what work looks like, right? I got a sister, I'm not gonna name her, but she talks about taking naps midday, you know what I'm saying, still getting her work done. But if that shit works for her and she's still getting her check, what the fuck ever, whatever. But I think we're seeing a resistance to change, both at senior level leadership, but also I think just culture and environment. Yet through the pandemic, the ongoing pandemic, and through the last 18 months, you still have found a position to where you do feel that, well, I'm sure you do, feel valued, right? Feel seen. I found a place of belonging with the Toronto Raptors. And so I'm curious, I want to move our conversation forward to talk about how your role as an educator, I mean, I think at your core, of course, being a boy mama and Jesus lover as well, but how as an educator, you see what you've done to this point in your career, how it add value to the Toronto Raptors and their organization as well?
Yeah, so I think the organization is trying to make some innovative moves that isn't the case across the board in professional sports. So many people are like, oh, they, aspire to work in player development, and player development looks different in a lot of different places. I got a lot of friends who do things, and I'm not even gonna throw some of the things.
Don't get me started. Don't even get me. That's another podcast. Do not get me started today.
Like, I'm not even going to throw some of the things that I've heard, but one thing that I'm very proud of with our organization is that we're really investing in the whole person. And so like my area that I work in is wellness and development. So yeah, mental health is such a huge piece of what we're doing right now, but it's also like that off-court development that really needs to be had for so many of these young men that I get to work with. And that varies. I mean, we have everything from 19, 20-year-olds to 30-plus-year-olds who, nearing the same age as me, who are kind of on that sunset of their careers and figuring out what's next. But you can make that impact when they're 20 years old to really start thinking about what's my purpose, what's my value, what can I do, and what helps me to stand out off the court. And so really helping them to define what their personal brand is, but also match it up and provide opportunities that's going to continue that cash flow well after the game ends, because those game checks are going to end at some point. They might end 2 years from now. They might end 10 years from now. Everybody's not going to be LeBron James and get to play for 18 years or however long he's been in the league,
Yeah.
But so you got to be realistic. And I mean, even talking about LeBron James, he made most of his money off the court. It's not even like from the game. So like really establishing who you are So I'm really excited to be a part of this organization, to have the opportunity to continue to push the envelope, and really like be a standard setter of what athlete development looks like across the board, and show other leagues, show other teams that we can do more than just kind of like hold their hand through the day-to-day operations, but really like set some of these folks up for life. And when you think about it, it's a win-win situation, because when they're building their personal brand, that positively reflects back on the organization. And then look, we all talking dollars make sense. So what kind of corporate partnerships is that going to continue to bring in because of the culture that you're building within your organization?
Right. I'm excited to see what y'all come up with, yo. I continue to think, and at least in my own work, I think the internet, the non-US space, continue to think more innovative, continue to be more innovative, continues to challenge what can be done in the future. And so, like I said, I'm definitely following you. I'm sure, obviously, although others in your village are following you, and definitely will continue to support everything that you're doing. But I must ask, given that you are a transparent leader as well, what do you believe is going to be, or has been, the biggest adjustment going from this higher ed space to both the professional sport, but also, Canada as well?
The biggest adjustment, man, I've literally had to take everything day by day since I started this role, because they're similar, but they're different in a lot of ways. It's just such a smaller organizational sphere than what I'm used to. So like it is going to be very much so like a family. And you really know all of the things and kind of like the inner workings with like from the business side of it, but then also like from the players side of it as well. And I think that sometimes gets lost in the college space, because we are very siloed in where we are. I mean, when I worked with student athlete development, I was in a unique space at Purdue where I did get to like have some staff and coaches development as well. So I kind of got to touch a lot of different people there, but that's not common in that role, right? When you work with student athletes, sometimes it's only relegated to the teams that you work with. And so you don't even get to talk to the basketball players because that's not one of your particular sports. So really kind of learning the business culture is going to be different. And then also just how quickly things change in college sport. I mean, in professional sport.
Yeah.
I mean, like there's trades that happen, there's, draft picks, and you think you got that person and then they end up getting, moved somewhere else, or then you have like the G League transition or the two-way players. And so there's that piece of it that is different. I'm used to working with football players. You have 100 and something of them and pretty much have most of them for 4 years. Some of them, well, now COVID, you got 6, 7, you got some lifers down in the college space. So it's that piece of it is interesting to me, to make sure that I'm continuing to stay objective, but finding ways to build those authentic relationships in the same right.
Right, man. Like I said, as soon as you posted that shit, I was like, oh yeah, that's what I gotta talk. I told you flat out, yo, and again, just me being honest as well. I was like, I continue to just be amazed in regards to the limits I put on myself, not knowing that they could be broken. And I'll continue to say, right, like purpose can't wait. I continue to say, impossible is nothing or whatever. Change will not come with somebody else some other time. Like seeing someone else, and particularly someone I know, like do it, I'm like, oh nah, raise the bar, right? Think bigger, believe bigger.
Pro sports was never something that I really ever saw myself in. And when I had the initial conversation, I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. Let me see, what this kind of can look like. And I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but it was like, we're going to go in a different direction. And then it circle back. So clearly, like what's for you is going to be for you.
For you. But you're doing it your way. I think that's what's most inspiring. All right. Like you didn't find a box to fit in. The box, you are the box. You became the box that they get to work with.
Yeah, you try
But
to put me in one, don't get it twisted. I'm gonna recycle and make this world a better place.
I want to use that shit for real. Segment 3. I'm gonna use that shit tomorrow, probably tomorrow at work. But segment 3, how can I, but also how can our podcast community best support you? So you talk about being the underdog, right? You talk about, managing human capital, of course, in a new role, new city, new country, like continue to evolve and progress in your own purpose journey as well. So what can I do, but also how can our podcast community best support you on the work that you're doing?
Oh, well, I mean, I have my own little executive coaching and consulting business. So, sending some folks my way would be great. I've said it for a couple of years, even before I worked with basketball, that I really believe that I'm the leader in assist. So you tell me what it is that you want to accomplish, and I can help you get there, and I can help you get there in a way that you never thought was even possible. And so just that's a passion for me. And I'm grateful that I also, it's like not just my passion, but it's my purpose. And I get to walk in that every single day by helping others and serving others to get to those places and spaces. And that can be anything from I'm trying to land my first job to I want a career transition. Look, I done been there, I done done it. I got stories, but I also have like tangible ways and like how we can like work through some of those obstacles as well. So yeah, that's probably the biggest thing. But then look, keep it up on social media. I'm here to hype folks, but I'm also here to just like have the real and the authentic conversations. And I'm so glad that we have that space to be able to do that. What was like, I don't even remember life before social media, before we could like live tweet an event, or like, you've hosted before, watching the documentaries. I was late on the last one. I didn't watch it till like the day after, but let me tell you, my 7-year-old loved Malice at the Palace. Like my man had things to say about the situation. So I kind of wish we had watched it before, because he probably would have had some things to comment on for Twitter.
That's right. I remember that shit happened. I was 4, I think I was 11.
Wait, so let me, okay, so I was in high school and my mom used to own a newspaper. And so my dad wrote the sports section of the newspaper. And he had just interviewed Steven Jackson, because Steven Jackson is from Port Arthur, which is the hometown, which is the town over from my hometown. Yeah. And I remember him doing the interview and he was just like, gosh, he was so great. And I just loved him. And so they were so shocked when all that happened, because that was not in the character of which they had just met him. And so it was, it was crazy that all of that really kind of came flooding back to me when I watched that. Like, man, I remember when this actually happened.
Yeah, that's wild. Hold on. So then before we go, because you name dropped it, but didn't express too much about it. Tell us more about your business.
So it's ACE Executive Coaching and Consulting, and it's ACE. It's a play on my 2 boys' names, so Ace and Duke. So the D is a big D on there. But it's essentially it's a business to help others find their passion and continue to move in the space that they're supposed to be in. And so like helping you to be the best version of yourself is what my life motto is, like to develop, to impact and empower others to be the best version of yourself. And that's something that I bring into the business. And so it's coaching you up in life, coaching you up in business, and then also just consulting with different organizations in various topics as well. So doing different presentations and panels and whatnot. So y'all get to see me in some different spaces, and it's cool. I enjoy it. I love just being able to interact with folks, regardless of who you are. I mean, you get to do a lot of stuff right now with Athlete Transition Services and Jonathan Orr, his company. And so we're working with the Detroit Public Schools and working with their student athletes and their coaches. And that's been a fun journey that we've been on since February. And so it's something that it's going to be at least another year or 2 project that we're going to continue to work with. But that's like that student athlete development piece. You don't see that at the high school level. And so we're providing that for them now, but really kind of setting the blueprint for what that can look like for so many others at the high school level. We always say, what do we need at the college level? Well, we need them to be more prepared. So this is helping to kind of prepare them, but it's also coaching up the coaches, because they don't have specified or designated administrators who can help in that space. So the coaches really kind of take that on. So helping to kind of coach them up in the process.
Okay. Well, I'll be sure to plug that in the description to this podcast, as well as the Instagram caption as well. But a new segment for us before we bounce. Well, it's entitled Before We Bounce. I got 4 questions for you. 4 fun questions. Again, I've been watching a lot of podcasts myself. Some are similar, some are different. But first question, your favorite sports memory?
My favorite sports memory that I competed in, or
competed, viewed, watched, witnessed, went in person, celebrated?
Man, I would say you're gonna hate this one.
What you gonna say? I already know.
You already know the Purdue Ohio State game was so. I mean, I just remember being so cold, but like not being cold because like we stood up the whole time. But you could feel it was electricity in the air. Like, oh my goodness, it was crazy. And then one of my coworkers, he actually had his baby on that night too. So it was just, yeah, like that was the best game that I've ever like been to, and really could like feel that energy. I don't know if I'd ever be able to like live that up again.
Nah, but y'all were supposed to win that game. Like the stars were aligned that day.
It felt different when we walked in. It felt different.
Yeah, I remember that like verbatim, or like it's yesterday. Next question: top 5 artists.
I'm the worst person ever because I don't know. I could probably barely name you 5 people. That's how bad it is. I mean, because I'm in the 6, like I've been a Drake fan for a while now. No, I can't recite the lyrics. No, I don't know any of the album names. But I like his music. I've always liked just his lyrical style. Beyonce, of course, because we got to rep for the hometown. Okay. I recently have like been on a like major country kick, so I'm not gonna like name one person, but I'm like really big into that. I think that's also part of like my Texas roots as well. Todd Delaney, because that's what I was listening to earlier today. And
some hits.
Man, one more. Like New Edition BBD. Yeah. Because Poison is my all-time favorite song.
Oh man, yeah, I gotta get my mom on here. She put me on music. I remember being in the car like age, I think it was like 5 or 6. She played Blueprint. I'll never forget this shit in my life. But next question.
My dad used to play like Tupac for me.
Yes, what I'm saying.
Michael Jackson, like that's what we jammed to.
She said BBD. All right, next question. If you could go to brunch with 5 people, you plus 5, bottomless mimosas, who you bring?
Michelle Obama, because Auntie Shell got to come to it all. For sure. Deion Sanders. So I've been a Deion fan. My first pair of basketball shoes when the Penny Hardaway's came out were actually Deion Sanders. I wanted the football shoes, and so that's what I played Little Jordans in. 5 people. My grandmother, because I've actually never seen her like with mimosas, but let me tell you, that's my top homie, and the good sis probably. Man, she would be something else. And, I really don't know if I need a whole lot of others. Maybe like Brene Brown.
It's a good one too.
And I'm gonna bring Ace. He's not gonna drink the mimosas, but Ace is good commentary, and my man always got stuff to say.
That's a good pick. That's a good pick. Okay, last question for you. And I stole this from All the Smoke. But who do you want to see on the podcast on Walk with TFB?
Ooh.
You got to help me get this person, whoever it is.
Who do I want to see? Darn. Man, you should have gave me I needed a heads up on this one. So I can't.
I can't. It's not too much.
That's not fair. Not all the rest of the people get to think about it. Hold on. I'm really trying to. I'm trying to think. You like got me stumped for real. I would love to hear I'd love to hear Nanny D in her most authentic self, Dee Merrick.
Oh, she got yo. I done told Didi she gonna be on here. You know what? Let me make this happen. I done told her. Yes. I would get Didi.
Yeah. But in the educator's standpoint, I think who's someone that I've been following lately? I think her name's is it Ashley Baker?
Oh, Michigan State. Yeah. Dr. Baker. Okay. Yeah, hit Ashley up for me. Give her heads up.
I don't know her. I just follow her on social. Well, I honestly don't know, but I have no problem.
I'll shoot. I will shoot for sure. Well, Dr. Lacee, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for joining us on today's show. I know I learned more about who you are, more about, your mission, your purpose, your vision, and hopefully we continue to stay connected in our purpose journey.
Absolutely. Look, I've been walking with TFB since it started. Not going anywhere. I got my real city walking shoes on now, so I'm ready. I got plenty of time and energy in these traffic drives to listen. So keep the content going. Super excited for all that you're doing to continue to watch your journey because you're special. I'm telling you, I don't know what other people think, but I can see when what does the meme say? Like I read the room, and that's one of the reasons why I don't go places. Oh, but no, like you the real deal, and I appreciate the opportunity to be on today.
You know it's gonna happen. I appreciate you for your words. But for everyone else, thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Walk with TFB. The season's going to be special. We're getting big active this season. If you have not already, make sure that you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, 5 stars and a bomb-ass review, but only if you mean it. Look forward to having more unfiltered conversation with educators on this season. But until then, welcome.